Today I'm going to show you how you can set up your own local private AI server on your own PC. There's a couple of ways you can do this, and most methods end up with the same visual result, but we're going to add a couple of extra layers of protection just in case. So for this to work, there's a couple of things you need. First is CPU virtualization. That's a setting inside your BIOS setup. Usually when you start your computer, it will say something like press delete or F2 or escape or F10 to enter your BIOS setup. Inside there, depending if you have an Intel or AMD CPU, look for something in the advanced settings for CPU virtualization. For Intel, it might be something called VTX or Intel Virtualization Technology. For AMD, it may be SVM mode, Secure Virtual Machine, or something like that. Enable that and then come back and we'll carry on with the rest of the stuff. Okay, cool. Now that you've set that up, let's see what else we need. Windows 10 and 11 with the latest updates. Make sure you've installed the latest updates. WSL2, that is a Windows subsystem for Linux. That is part of the Windows features, so you can just enable that. Ubuntu is a default install with WSL2, and I'll show you soon how you can do that. Docker and Docker Compose. This lets you run apps in its own little room. It's sort of like a sandbox environment. NVidia GPU. You don't really need this, but I recommend it. NVidia Toolkit. This you only need, of course, if you have an NVidia GPU. Ollama. That's sort of like a toolkit to run various AI brains on your PC. Open-webui. This is a pretty visual interface to make things more user-friendly. So let's start with the setup. First we'll do WSL2. For that you just open a command prompt and you type WSL --install. Now in Windows features, for this to work you need to have Windows subsystem enabled as well as virtual machine. However, doing WSL install like this will actually enable those two features for you. Just say yes. It will take a second or two to install the various files you need. Installing Ubuntu is doing right here in the same steps, but you'll find sometimes what happens is for the first part it will ask you to restart Windows, and sometimes if you've recently enabled those things it will just install Ubuntu straight away. Now WSL is enabled and Ubuntu is installed, we can start with the next things. Docker and Docker Compose. Before we install Docker, let's quickly install Windows Terminal from the Windows Store. At the time of recording, the latest one is 4.4, just click Get and install it. Windows Terminal is not strictly necessary, so you can skip this step if you want, but I like to use it. So once I launch the Windows Terminal, it looks sort of like your normal command prompt, except it has this arrow here, and you can choose the square Ubuntu, not the round one. And that will actually start up WSL and Ubuntu for you. Now you're in a traditional Linux prompt. Now we're ready to carry on the rest of the steps. Docker and Docker Compose, we'll go to the official documentation for the installation. I'll leave this link in the description for you below the video. Once you're in this section, you can just hover over this, click to copy that, go to your terminal, right click to paste, and press enter, and it will start installing Docker and Docker Compose for you. Just need to enter your password. This doesn't actually install it just yet, it just prepares the repositories for you. So we go back to the documentation to see what else we need. Scroll a bit down, and now we actually can install the packages. So copy this section and paste that into the terminal. Again, depending on your speed of the internet, this could take a while or be pretty quick. Next step, let's see if it works. Can't find that package, so it quickly downloads it, and when you see this, you're all good to go. So you don't need to keep on sudo before your Docker commands, you can paste this command in here. Now next time you can just run the Docker commands by itself. Now that Docker and Docker Compose is installed, we can carry on. And I'm using my NVidia GPU, so I'll also need to install the NVidia Toolkit. So for that, we'll also go to the official documentation. Again, I will leave this link in the description below. Since we installed Ubuntu with our WSL, we need to follow this section of the installation. So similarly as before, you can just copy the whole lot from here and paste it into the command prompt to prepare things and install. The next step, and the next one, this is basically so that Docker can use your GPU, otherwise it will not have access to your GPUs, since the things running in Docker will be isolated from the rest of your system, unless you explicitly give it access. Now that that is installed, we're ready to create our Docker container. So for that, we're just going to create a file directly in the folder where you are currently. You type that, press enter, and then if you look in the description below, you can just copy and paste this entire thing. It's sort of like a recipe or a configuration file for your container, and it tells Docker what to do. So in this case we have two containers, Ollama and Open-webui, and all these things here will basically install it, set it up, and be ready to go for you. That's the name of this container. It will use port 11434. There we tell it, make sure it uses the GPU stuff that we installed previously. This is our Open-webui container, that is its name, and it will be using port 3000. Once you paste it in here, all you need to do is press Ctrl A to write it, press enter to write the file, and Ctrl X to exit. We're restarting the terminal. Give it a second to start. Now we can paste this command again. Now it's actually pulling the Ollama as well as Open-webui packages from the internet. And at the same time it's creating the containers, setting things up. Depending on the speed of your internet, this could take a while. I'll just fast forward the video until this part is complete. Okay, cool. Now that that is set up, we can test to see if things are working. So I'm just going to paste this in here to see if Ollama is working. You see this? Cool, Ollama is working. So let's just change to port 3000 for Open-webui. Cool bananas, seems to be working. So let's get started. In this section you just need to create a username and password so you can carry on. I'm just going to call myself admin for now and use my admin email. Okay, cool, we're all set up. Well, not exactly. This is only the interface, we don't actually have any AI yet. So let's download a small AI to test things out. We go to the admin panel, settings, models. As you can see, there's nothing there. So let's add one. To see which models are available, you can click here. That will actually go to the Ollama site just to display which models are available. There's a whole bunch there, as you can see. For example, if you want this one, you would use that command. I'm going to copy that. That's quite a big one. So what we're going to do is we're just going to install a small one just to test things out. So the one I'm going to install is Llama 2. Cool, now that it's done, let's give it a go. Tell me about our solar system. You'll see a little dot there, thinking, and it will answer. Okay, cool, seems to be working. If we go back to the Ollama library, to the available models, you can either just click on models there, and you can find one, whichever one you like. Each one serves a different purpose. Let's try out DeepSeek R1. You'll see there's a whole bunch of different ones here, different sizes, etc. Click on view all, you'll see there's even more. So typically the size here corresponds to the VRAM you have available. In my case I've got a 24 gig GPU, so I can look for something that will fit into that. So if we go down here, then this one seems to be just right. Remember, there's also a little bit of overhead for Docker, the system settings, etc. So don't max it out to 24 gig. Something smaller. So if I leave 4 gig free, that should be fine. That one you'll need a GPU with a lot of VRAM, and typically consumer cards don't have that kind of memory. That one you're unlikely to find a single GPU. You can maybe string a couple of GPUs together, but that will cost a fortune. In some cases you can try to run that on CPU, however, and it will be a lot slower, but you'll need to have a lot of system RAM for that. In our case, let's stick to that one. So we'll copy that, we'll go back to Open-webui, go to the admin panel again, settings, models, add a model. This is a much bigger model, so it will take a lot longer to download. That 20 gig requirement you saw earlier is actually what will all be loaded into the V at the same time. So when you're using this particular model and it requires 20 gig but your card is only 24 gig, I would recommend you close all other programs that might be using GPU VRAM, as it could crash the system. While that's busy, let's quickly go back to the models page on Ollama. If you have a GPU with less VRAM, you could try this model here, which requires very little VRAM. So what do all those numbers mean? What is the difference? So if we start this end, that will be a smart AI, and they become smarter as they go. But obviously as well, the more RAM or VRAM you require. Okay, that's done. Let's see what it can do. Here we are back in the chat, so let's switch over to a different model. In this case, this is the other one I downloaded. And let's ask it the same question and see what it comes up with. You'll see this thing starts pulsating as it's thinking. The first time you load it, it'll take a bit of time just because it needs to load the model into the VRAM. When it's just thinking, you can actually go to performance and just switch this tab over to CUDA and just make sure that it is actually using your GPU. And as you can see, in this case, it's almost 100% and it's maxing out my VRAM. As you can see, it gives a lot more detailed answer than the previous model. You can see it's finished answering and now things are getting unloaded from RAM. My CUDA usage is going back down. My VRAM is still high because it still has the model in RAM. By default, it keeps the model in VRAM in case you carry on chatting. But after default, I think of 5 or 6 minutes, it will unload from VRAM as well. As you can see, after about 5 minutes, it's unloaded from my VRAM as well. Okay, so what now? How do you actually close this? You can just close the terminal, which will shut down Ubuntu and any Docker containers that's currently running. So once it's closed, just give it a few seconds and it will unload all the containers from RAM as well. After a few seconds, you can verify this. You're going back to the Ollama port and see what you get. As you can see, it can't be reached. Let's try NVidia again. Same thing, doesn't work. So what do you do now? How do you get it back up? Well, you simply just launch your terminal and open the Ubuntu part again. So it will start up. Give it a few seconds to start the containers, maybe 10 seconds or so. And there we go. Sometimes you may have to log back into Open-webui. The things automatically start up when you start WSL because any Docker containers, we told it to restart automatically. If you skip the part about installing the Windows terminal from the Windows Store, you can just do things directly from your command prompt as well. So to start things up, you just type WSL and that will actually start Ubuntu again. And there, Ubuntu started, and now in the background, because we told Docker to restart by itself, they will automatically restart. So if we go back to a port 3000 and start, there we go. The cool thing about containers is if there's a new version that came out for Ollama or Open-web, it's very easy to pull the latest versions. All you have to do is just stick this command on, enter, and it will check on the internet, and boom, done. In this case, it didn't actually download it because I'm already in the latest versions. Then if you did download and install something new, you just can run it again like so. Let's see what it answers to this one. Have fun playing with your new AI. Don't forget to like and subscribe.